Hello, everyone. Happy to be here again today with you. Day 3 of our 3-part series on overcoming I am enough and I've had enough. And it's also our secret sauce is all about emotional security, being emotionally secure people. So, I'd like to start. I can share that I am again in Wusa mode, and that's fine. That's good because there are times when life happens all around us, the things we don't have control over, that we just get to choose our response. So when the unexpected happens, we have to pivot and adjust. And I've done that, and that I've not been prevented from being here with you today. And I am grateful. I did not get to put in the title listed today, but those who have been following and keeping up, and you're on now, you hear me, you hear it, because I did not get to put that on before connecting with you today. But overcoming, I'm enough, and I've had enough. And one of the things that was shared this week from the previous 2 days is that sometimes saying I've had enough, it's not in a gruff way necessarily. Now, if it needs to be, then you be the one to determine. But there are times it's not. It's just an acknowledgement. And the I've had enough can be to yourself. Whatever situation that you may have endured or responded to in a certain way, you may determine, no, I've had enough of this particular thing, or in this particular way. It's time to readjust, realign, do something different. You get to determine that. Choice is yours. We always have choices, and that leads us to today. But before I get there, just a brief recap on the previous 2 days. So Wednesday, we talked about the importance of knowing yourself. When you are overcoming something, when you are determining and recognizing that you are enough, you've had enough, you need to know who you're talking about. You need to fully understand who you are, what makes you tick, what works, what doesn't, what your likes are, your desires. You have to know that. So if someone were to ask you, what do you want, what do you need, and you're thinking, well, that shouldn't be something we want to stutter around regularly. We need to be familiar because we need to know who we are and what our needs are. We need to know ourselves if no one else does. So that was important. And the second day was knowing, the first day is knowing yourself. The second day is showing your self-respect. Okay, we get to have respect just because we exist. Just because we exist. We're part of human creation. We deserve respect to give it and receive it. Respect, respect, respect. And doing so, it'll look like something, because how we think shapes how we move, our actions, our habits, and it's based off of what we believe and what we think. So when we respect ourselves, it will become obvious. And there are times and there are ways in which we do not show respect to ourselves, and that is obvious as well. So when we respect someone, we tend to treat them differently than if we had a different level of respect or none at all for them. We talk to them differently. We move differently around them. The things that we, may offer them, do for them, because the level of respect reflects how we choose to interact. So for ourselves included, how we talk to ourselves is important. So if we're going to talk to ourselves with respect, our self-talk will reflect that. We won't say things that demean us, that put us down in the presence of others or even by ourselves. It just won't be our language. We will be forgiving of ourselves when we make mistakes. We'll make adjustments. Sometimes you need to even make recompense. You just may need to go back and address things, fix them where necessary. But the point is, we will give ourselves some grace, knowing that we're human and we're prone to error, but we can get back up, move around, move differently with the knowledge that we've gained, and restore relationships and friendships and connections where able. So you'll do that. You'll also be gentle with yourself. It also helps us sometimes to be gentler with others as well, because they're in the same human condition that we're in. So we'll learn how to treat ourselves in such a way that if others don't treat us that way, that doesn't feel good. Something ain't right. I don't talk to myself that way. I don't treat myself that way. And I'm not inclined to allow anyone else to. It doesn't feel agreeable. It's not something that can be sustained for the long haul because, like, no, this is not even how I move and breathe. It's nothing about who I am and what's acceptable for me. As we recognize these things, as we recognize and learn who we are, so we know ourselves, then we show ourselves self-respect. That will be reflected out as we communicate our boundaries or speak our truth. Excuse me. And speaking our truth, same as communicating boundaries. There are some things that are acceptable for us and some things that aren't. Now, you can think for yourself, what is a way, when it comes to communicating boundaries, how would you describe a boundary? What do you think about? What comes to mind when you think about a boundary? I think about a line of demarcation. This is how far and no further that this territory extends. I think of a boundary in that way. When I think about a boundary in my life, it determines what works for me and what's a non-negotiable. Yeah, this, we don't do. I won't do this. I won't receive this. I won't go here. I have my boundary, a boundary line. And when we know ourselves and respect ourselves, we get to determine what we will and will not accept. What is a boundary that cannot be crossed? Before we can communicate anything, before we can speak our truth, we have to know it. We got to know our truth first. What is it? Where do I stand? Where do I allow others to stand in my life? So we have to know our boundaries. And this is a process. So let's say in childhood, for some, it's natural to acknowledge what they do or don't like, what they will or won't receive, sometimes even, excuse me, who they like or don't. It can be quite vocal somewhere along the way. Now, sometimes that has to be fine-tuned, because it could be in the raw, and sometimes it may need to be fine-tuned, depending. But as we grow and evolve and experience life and are impacted by circumstances, situations, and people, sometimes that is tapered off or done away with altogether. We're not comfortable anymore to speak our truth, and sometimes we don't even know what that is. In cases that are unfortunate but real. And the catch is, learning boundaries is it's a skill that we all can learn. So whether we learned it a long time ago and we've been able to continue to implement it, or we never knew it, never learned it, and get to establish something now, we get to just do that, establish something now, because boundaries provide limits, but boundaries also help keep us safe. They keep us safe. And we get to determine what those boundaries are. And once we do, it is up to us to share them out. And one way we can do so is by feeling statements. So we have to be able to experience our feelings, acknowledge them, and determine what that means. So this is one way to do it, I feel blank when blank. So I feel good when I've had a good meal. I'm just throwing that out there. But as it applies to other people in our lives and how people interact with us, we get to, or how we interact with ourselves. We can determine how we feel when whatever the case may be happens. Whenever the interaction happens and whatever that interaction is, we can determine what we feel. And it's important as we build our community and our tribe that we're able to feel safe with people, with those we trust. And we can identify when those feelings of safety are. I feel safe when I can express myself and not be judged. When I feel safe when I'm accepted and don't have to perform or do anything. I can just rest and be, or I can be up and be. Whatever way I need to, I can be, and I'm accepted. You fill in the blanks for yourself. When you feel safe, when you feel respect, when you feel good, and then also when you feel unsure of yourself. insecure about something. You can identify what that is too. It's just good to, as part of getting to know ourselves and respecting ourselves, taking time to figure it out. Because we can't express or speak on things that we don't fully understand yet ourselves. How can we expect someone else to? How can we even attempt to share out what we've not even processed yet for ourselves? And it doesn't have to be difficult. I mean, it's a process. Everything is a process, especially if we're learning it. But it's something worth doing. So my point is, it doesn't have to be what it doesn't have to be. Let's just say that. Acknowledge how you feel and to determine what that means for you. I feel what? And we're not wrong for our feelings. We're just responsible for them. We're not wrong for our feelings. We're just responsible for them. So acknowledgement of how we feel, that should be easy. Maybe not. But it's just acknowledgement of what is going on with us. Our body is going to let us know. Our emotions are indicators. So whether we feel stressed, feel calm and relaxed, feel angry or upset, it's a reason for it. Even if we don't know what it is yet, we can just acknowledge how we feel first to ourselves. Just acknowledge it. And then identify when those feelings happen. That's key. And as we communicate with others, we can let them know our boundaries. And it doesn't mean it has to be done harshly, because we just kind of think about how we would like someone to communicate with us, because we don't know someone else's boundaries always. There are some things that are understood by some of us and other things are not. So if we cross someone's boundary, or we are about to, but we don't know it, and the person communicates it to us, there's a way we might be able to receive that better. Sometimes, depending on our moods and our issues, we may not be able to receive things because of that, our moods, our issues. But that's our issue, not the other person's, okay? But it's good when we can receive another person's boundaries as well. And there are times that we would ideally prefer that communicated in a way that requires the least amount of resistance. So, in other words, if it doesn't take a big bomb, a big insult, no, just tell me. Tell me in the way that would be the easiest to receive. Ideally, kindly and clearly. Just, no, I don't do that, or I don't like that, or this is how I move, this is what I do. And we can do the same. It's about us, how we feel. I feel blank when blank. And so you can let people know what is acceptable for you, and it doesn't have to be long or lengthy. Now, big question. What about those people who don't respect our boundaries and who don't care? Well, they're out there, and we already know it, okay? They're out there. But us having boundaries is not about them. It's about us. It's about us, knowing who we are, what we feel, and what we need for optimal health. It's about us. So the times that people don't receive it, again, it's for us to know what they are, and then we get to determine how we'll move with that information, because we know sometimes who those people are. There are people who do not have that respect for us or our boundaries, and we get to determine in difficult situations, challenging situations, whether we will leave, change their circumstances as we're able, or even be able to thrive in certain circumstances, environments, or relationships. That's something we get to determine. So based on whether or not people respond to our boundaries, that would give me some good information as to how I need to move, what I need to consider, what I need to think about in determining whether I need to leave, change, or am able to thrive in this circumstance. That choice is yours. Becoming emotionally secure is about us. And when we are emotionally secure, we are not asking for permission and validation to be who we are. We just are. We have that ability to give our own selves approval. We're not looking for it from others, so they do not hold that power over us. We are empowered to live well. We are empowered to make our choices. We have the courage and the confidence we need. And I will leave you with that. All of this requires confidence and then courage to act. If we don't have it right away, practice builds. Practice builds. Continue to build. Get the confidence. Build the confidence. and the courage that comes from knowing yourself, respecting yourself, and speaking your truth by communicating boundaries. Okay? Love to get to know you more, connect more. Feel free to reach out. There is a link in the comments section. And until then, I look forward to seeing you again, but do well, be well, as you are empowered. We are empowered to live well.